So, Susan, thank you very much for being with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. My first question is, you've been a witness to the change in this industry throughout the last 3-4 decades. Cinemas are struggling, platforms are thriving. Are you an optimist about keeping films in cinemas in the next few years?
That's a very good question, and I have to say, no one's asked me that, so you're going to get a fresh answer. The business is in chaos right now. Between COVID and all of the things that people started to watch so much at home on small screens, there definitely was a shift. And all of those deals that were made with back ends and cinemas, they all disappeared. So there's been a lot when I look at agencies, in terms of trying to figure out how to make these deals and trying to sell things to theaters, but almost simultaneously they will go on to a streaming service. So I don't know much, care much about the business end of it, but I know that it's in flux, and I know that all the old structures that everybody had in place are definitely not relevant. And so they're trying to figure out how to make as much money as possible while things are changing this way. And also when you have streaming services that are so much braver than a lot of movies, because they know what their little audience is, and so they can be sexier or more edgy or more whatever and make something that has a vision that is kind of more courageous than a lot of films which are trying to please everybody. There was something that I did recently, and the director was like, well, the test group didn't like that one guy in the beginning because he didn't want to do this, and the whole movie is about him changing to do that. But they tried to soften him up so that everybody would like him all the time, and the poor actor, his performance was kind of nibbled away at and become much less interesting because they're trying to please everybody. Now, you don't have that in TV. You can have really bad people for 2 or 3, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I know that certainly in terms of women's roles, there's many more interesting women's roles on television through some of the big servers than there are in films. Or if they are about women, then they're tiny, tiny films. And then the trick is the distribution. Nobody knows how to distribute films. They don't know where to put them once they get them made. And then there are these huge blockbusters. And most of the films that I had success with, which were between around $15 million, maybe $20 million, they're just not made anymore. It's either 10, 5, or 100, so I don't know what that's doing to the market, but I know that there definitely is. I like going to the theater. I like going to myself and sitting in a dark room and watching something on a big screen, and I think tonight when you see Thelma Louise, you'll see something that really would suffer if it was on TV because it's so beautifully shot. And so to see it in a tiny screen, or I see kids watching just on there, it just kills me. So I hope that theaters can keep going. I know we've lost a lot of art houses, lost a lot of the ability to see foreign films in the United States.
Why do you think some films like Thelma and Louise keep being so alive, like 30 years after the shooting, after the release? Why some of them are forgotten and others keep their meaning to many people?
I don't know. I mean, I wish I did. Now I celebrate like the 50th anniversary of Rocky Horror Show. I'm going. All these films are getting to be Dead Man Walking 30-some years, and some of them have. I have no idea what the secret is to why some of them persist and some of them don't. I really don't know.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so in a long career,
what do you think?
What do I think?
Yeah, why?
I don't know. It depends on the ingredients of the film, I would say. Actors and the script and a good direction, and it's magic, I would say. Yeah, I don't know if there's a rule.
A miracle.
Yeah.
It's a miracle.
It's a miracle, yeah. My last question will be, because we have to go, you've been around, as I said, for decades now, and you've learned many valuable lessons from many directors. Why haven't you directed?
I haven't officially directed. I've definitely directed some things, but I don't have the patience to deal with the suits, with the studios. I don't have the patience to fight and fight and fight to try to what happens about the editing, what happens about the poster, what happens about how they distribute it, because you have this you have a counterpoint of creative people and bankers, and they don't necessarily think the same. So that's the first problem. And secondly, I love working with people. I ask a lot of questions. I'm very free to bring up suggestions when I'm in the back seat. If I was in the front seat and I had to get our car there, I had to get our show there by a certain time on a certain thing, I think it would be less fun for me, because honestly, I don't really care what's in the background at around 7 o'clock at night. Those endless things where you're waiting for the cars to pass in the right order to do. I'm not that kind of a person. I'm not detail oriented in an obsessive way, the way you have to be with a director. Now, maybe if you had a DP that was a great collaboration, that would be more fun. But I like the tribe. I like not going where it's going. I like to be surprised. I'm not interested in controlling everything. So just personality-wise, I don't know that I find anything that compelling that I would live with it. I've lived with directors, so I'm not naive about the toll it takes, from Louis Malle or Tim Robbins. I understand what goes on with those battles and with that kind of thing. And I like being looser. I like just having to keep my bubble up. I remember I talked to a director that I had worked with, who now is an actor, who was now acting, and I called him up and I said, "Oh my God, you were so great. Did you have a good time?" And he says, "Oh, it's so much more fun than directing, because directing, you're like the parent at Christmas, and acting, you're like the drunk uncle that can say whatever he wants to do, eats and does whatever he wants." He says, "Oh, it was so much fun." And I think I'm more like the drunk uncle.
Thank you so much.
You're
It's been a
welcome.
pleasure. Thank you.